Be very careful because there's a lot of hostility and people are going to be opposed to your presence here.
So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
Mary Boyd was a young 20-something graduate from Antigonish, Nova Scotia, who had a big interest in social activism from a young age.
I have to give a lot of credit to my mother because when we were children, my mother would listen to the 7 o'clock news in the morning, and when we came down for breakfast, she would tell us what was in the headlines and what was in the news, and that we developed a tremendous interest in the world and in current affairs.
She decided to attend a community college in Cincinnati, Ohio, where many knew of where she came from and what it was like.
So at that community college we had assignments, and there was a request from the Black YWCA in the West End of Cincinnati for a leadership training course, and people thought, well, you have that background from Antigonish, would you like to be part of that committee?
After a few training sessions, they asked Boyd to stay on staff at the Y.
I was the only white person on staff at the Y that year, and I was in charge of adult programming and children's programming.
When the idea of traveling to Selma came up, Boyd felt that it was only right that she attend.
It seemed very natural then for me to say, I'd like to go to Selma, and there were three people who were going, and I just asked if I could join that group, and that was it. We went.
When she arrived in Selma, the racial divides were obvious.
It was quite terrifying when I first got there because, first of all, we were warned if you have a northern license plate with a big march like this going on, be very careful. When we arrived, we realized we were being followed by a car with white young men in it. So every turn we took, they were behind us and very close to us and kind of taunting our bumper a bit. Like the town was really divided into blacks and whites. It was almost like a distinct dividing line. The first day we marched, we started up from Selma, and that was quite an experience in itself because the whites were lining the roads. But it was still shocking to see people out thumbing their nose and calling you names, and little children with toy guns, you know, and pointing them at us and that sort of thing.
Once Boyd arrived in Lansdowne County, she had to turn back to Selma for 2 days until it was safe for her to join the march again. The hatred was not forgotten, though.
All of a sudden you'd see people coming out and they'd look and they'd run, and so when I came out I realized the owner of the gas station where we stopped was there with his pistol, and he had his hand on it, and he was saying, you get off my property immediately or I'll shoot you, and he called us a few choice names and so on.
She soon came face to face with the leader himself.
But then as you get out in the sunshine, you look down the road to your left, and there was Martin Luthor King and his Southern Christian Leadership Conference people coming up the road with the march that had gone through Lowndes County.
They ended the day with a concert under the stars with speeches and performances.
We slept in a camp. There were sleeping bags, and it was kind of like a great big army camp. And we were at very close quarters.
Next day, they made the final stretch into Montgomery.
We went through a black neighborhood which was obviously very, very poor and very oppressed. And the blacks were all out offering us water and Kool-Aid, and they were just rejoicing. Their arms were in the air. They were just saying, God bless you, and this is the most wonderful thing.
Martin Luther King Jr. then delivered a speech from the steps of the state legislature in Montgomery.
Martin Luther King delivered a fantastic talk that day. It was a really wonderful experience. He called on the American dream. That's an ideal they have now. In some ways it's a myth, but it is an ideal and it inspires the American.
And to this day, she remembers the mark that Martin Luther King left on the world.
things were really reaching people, and that's what Martin Luther King said. Their conscience is being stirred now. And so Selma set a new course in the whole civil rights movement, and you know, as he said, we're moving on, we can't go back, and how long is it going to take? And he said, how long does the truth take?